Welcome to another episode of Heated Conversation. Super excited that you decided to tune in to the episode. We go all the way to Utah with the Thunderbirds. We have Scotty Bauman, head coach of the SUU, Southern Utah Gymnastics. He's here to talk about himself, talk about his program, as well as some interesting things about him that he likes to do, some fun things that they like to do at their camp, which I would encourage you to be able to go to. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I'm super excited that you guys tuned in. Before you guys get into the episode, hit that subscribe button. At the end, leave a comment. Make sure that you share and like this video. Let's tune into the episode. Scotty, welcome to the episode. How are you?
It's good to be here, Petey. Thank you. I'm doing great.
Yeah. It's been a few years that I've been to your camp, as I had mentioned a little bit. And that's not the first time we connected. We connected because of my time at Utah State. And obviously, which we'll dive into a little bit more. We saw each other a few times during the year, being in the same state, obviously, right? And so I want to dive into later about your camps and stuff and all the experiences that you have for your athletes as well as for your coaches. But I want to start off with a couple of questions. The first question, if you could have anyone cook you a meal, what would it be and who would you have cook you that meal?
Oh, you know what? My mom's been gone for over a year, and I would have her cook me her ramen noodles. Oh my gosh, they're so good. And just to be with her would be fantastic, I think. So, though that would be mine, and it's just so good. Ooh,
Dive into
and I still cook those till this day, and my daughters love them, and I love that they love it.
Now, it's not like the ramen noodles that you just go to the store and you just put some water in and you take the package and just pour that powder package and mix it up, right?
No, these are very different. And we cook enough and we cook it in a big, huge pot to last us for about 4 or 5 days. Because after about 1 or 2 days is when it's the best. And it's the broth is soaked into the noodles, and it's just, oh, it's divine.
And what type of conversations would your family have or you would have with your mom around that meal?
Oh my gosh. My mom was the most open book about everything. She would talk about anything and everything with me. Didn't matter what it was, life, science, girls, whatever. She knew I loved science and everything about science. So she would talk about that. She was actually quite brilliant, and she was just, she was fast. It was fascinating to watch her raise me because she pretty much did it alone. And it was just her and I the last 5 or 6 years and the last 4 or 5 years. And I don't know how I really probably should have ended up in prison where I grew up and how I grew up, but she figured things out, man. She was tough and soft and awesome, but tough. She
Yeah,
was all of that.
right. Now, I think having great mothers, as you're talking about yours, is super important, essential to be able to creating, great humans like yourself, as well as great food, right? I think
Yep.
food brings a family together, brings people together, and it's always a great place to kind of have a common ground to have some of these great conversations and, to share life, right?
Yeah. Oh, yes. I couldn't agree more. At the dinner table is one of the best places to just kind of hang out and chill with your family. So,
Yeah, I love that. Now, I have a second question for you. If you could go see anyone live in concert, dead or alive, who would you like to go see and who would you bring with you?
oh man, I have a couple of concert going, but oh, who would I go see, dead or alive? I'll tell you who I'd want to go see. I love his music. I love his voice. I love, everything about him. I don't go to a lot of concerts. I've been to maybe 3 of them in my entire life. And I usually go with the same people, a couple of buddies of mine. One of them's my assistant coach. And I think I'd want to go see Chris Stapleton. I love that guy and I love his music. It's just chill. It's nice to listen to. It doesn't beat up your brain. And sometimes I like that kind of music too, but his would be great to go watch.
Yeah. No, and Is that, do you listen to him like in the car, or like right now, when do you tend to listen to him?
Well, well, most of the time we're listening to music in the gym. If I'm in the car, I'm listening to a podcast or something like that. I love music. It soothes my soul and gets it going.
Yeah.
But I we listen to it constantly in the gym. So, and we have this playlist that, just crosses every genre you can think of. We just check it all really, really good for words and everything like that. I've always been very strict about that stuff. So, and it's got a few thousand songs on there, and we listen to that, and a bunch of his stuff is on there, and just all kinds of music. It's kind of nice. You don't get stuck into one type of music in there, and you're exposed to just about everything.
Yeah. No, I think it's good. Um, I know at least in the gymnastics world, right? At least when you're training, it's very hard. As soon as that music stops, it's always super awkward, right? The kids don't know what to do. For coaches too, it seems really awkward. You can hear yourself, and it feels like it's a lot louder than you think, right? And
Yeah.
that the music brings the energy to the training session, and it also kind of allows for the corrections to kind of flow, right? It can flow
Yeah.
smoothly and feel like it's received well. Not that it wouldn't be, no matter what, but I think music just helps you feel like you can absorb things better, right?
Yes. Yes. It really does. It doesn't matter what you're doing either. I mean, we'll have girls and we'll play different kind of music just to kind of distract them on beam. If they hate country, we'll play. We'll just try to figure out what'll bug them sometimes on beam, because music really does. It can do so much things to your mind, so many things to your mind, and it can get you to calm down. It can get you riled up. It can get you angry. It can get you calm. It's just something. It's a tool that we use in the gym actually sometimes.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. That's amazing.
And they all have their own beam songs, and when they're playing those, it's nice. But sometimes you go to places they won't let you play them, so you got to kind of figure things out.
Yeah. No, you really do. And, being able to be in an environment that's not always suitable for you, right? And we'll talk about this as well, but you guys have quite a fan base, as that kind of can make it not hard, but it can make it interesting for other teams, right? That they
Yeah.
really get involved into the competitions. And also, you can't always replicate that in a practice, and if they're coming to um, Southern Utah for a competition, they better be ready. They better be locked in and focused, because those fans are going to be bumping and rolling and ready to go.
Well, our fans are great because they're very cordial to the opposing team too, because we've had this fan base for decades now, and they're very knowledgeable and they appreciate great gymnastics. They do. They will they'll applaud the other team when they're doing great. They don't harass them or anything. It's just that when we're doing our gymnastics, they lose their minds, and they really appreciate it when we do something well more than anything else. And if you watch any of our Twitter feeds or anything like that, you can see the crowd reacting and getting into the floor routines, and they do the whole floor routine. They do some of the floor routines with all of the girls, and we have this group of it's called the Thunder Crew, and they come in and kind of learn the routines with the girls, and then they'll teach the people in the audience with the cheerleaders and everybody else, and it's just so much fun in there. They have a great time. And during our Thunder, our preview, we go through everything that we want and expect out of our fans. We want them to be really engaged the entire meet. We want them to appreciate the opposing team, because there's a lot of hard work going into this stuff, regardless if you're on our team or their team, and to be very, very respectful. But yet at the same time, we want that environment to be popping in there. We want it to be fun. We want it to be loud. It's crazy. And you have to be prepared for that. And believe it or not, I mean, it's almost as hard for our own kids to go in there and compete as it is for anybody else, because our athletes want to pleased that crowd immensely. And if you look back, the last 4 or 5 times our team has scored a 197, it was not in our own home arena. It was on the road somewhere. So, you know, we're typically a pretty good road team, but we love competing at home because of our fans. They are absolutely the best fans in the world. Val Condo, when she came here back in 2011, she had just beaten Utah up at Utah in front of 15,000 screaming fans up there. And it was the first time Utah had lost up there in like decades on a dual meet. And she came down here and we had a crowd of 5,300 people, and our arena only sits 5,200. And we had a line going out and down the block to get in for it. And it was the loudest, most insane crowd we've ever been in. And we hit 24 out of 24 routines. We looked great. And 2 of their kids fell on beam. And afterwards, she comes up and she's like, "Hey, Scotty, can I talk to your fans for a second?" And I'm like, "Ooh, I don't know, Val. What are you going to say?" And she's all, "I want them to know they're the best crowd we have ever competed in front of, and that this is the environment that we're trying to foster and bring and create in Los Angeles." And I'm like, "Yeah, if you're going to say that, you can talk to them." And within about 2 minutes, she had our whole crowd just eating out of her hand. They loved her. So
Yeah. No, I did an episode with her and we talked about that. We talked about how, you know, she's really changed the landscape of really the performance aspect of gymnastics. Obviously with her dance background and performance background, you know, viral video after viral video of her athletes, you know, competing and seeing the crowds get involved, and, you know, not only bringing not gymnastics fans, but non-gymnastics, you know, normal fans
of
to
course, yes.
and, you know, being able to appreciate that, because me being a musician, I appreciate seeing great performances. And what makes a great performance, obviously besides the performer, is the audience's response to what you're doing, you know, and being able to have an audience that's engaging, that's locked in, that understands, you know, what's happening. It really creates a different environment for the competitors in the aspect of gymnastics competitions, right?
Right. It creates a different environment in there for sure. And there is no way you can replicate that. And there is no way you can replicate that in your gym. We've done inter squads in our facility before, you know, for years, but it became too much. We're trying to fit 500 people in our practice facility, and the fire marshal just shut us down. So he was like, "Scotty, we can't do these in here anymore." And you know, because we're trying to create that environment just on a smaller scale in our practice facility, but it got to be too crazy. And but yeah, it's honestly competing in the facility and our company. I cannot figure out how to get this being recorded thing off my screen. So, but honestly, competing in our competition facility is unbelievable. And we typically only get one good practice over there prior to the year every year, because, you know, it's just such a needed facility on this campus. So everybody uses it.
Yeah. And I think one thing about Utah, it seems like their crowds, they do a very good job. Like the schools in Utah, at least with gymnastics, they do a very good job showing up and supporting their team. Because I know personally, you know, Utah obviously has a super loyal fan base, right? They're always selling out. You know, BYU, you know, in regards to their mascot is a huge deal, and how he gets involved into all their athletics and really gets them involved. And, you know, me personally experiencing the environment at Southern Utah, and then me being at Utah State and seeing that, you know, Utah is really, you know, a place if you really want to see um, some gymnastics and really be involved in the competition, you know, go to one of those schools in Utah, and I'm sure it's going to change your life and turn you into a fan if you're not yet a fan.
Oh yeah, gymnastics in Utah It's a huge thing, and we got to give credit where credit is due. Greg Marston was a brilliant marketer, and he thought through marketing and meet management and stuff very strategically. He looked at it as a show and a performance, and how do we make this the best experience for the fans? And that was one of the biggest things always on his mind. So when they would drag on and judges would take their time and do all this stuff, those are the things that drove him nuts. And to be honest, I learned a lot of that stuff from him, because when Jeff and I came down here originally 33 years ago, I sat down with Greg and Bill Sands, his assistant coach, for a couple of days. And I picked their brain about everything they did, because that was the model with which we wanted to set Southern Utah University up, and our first year, and Petey, I'm not going to lie, our first year when we came down here, we were rough. The whole team was ready to quit. They had a bad coach before us. They all wrote a letter that they would leave, but and our crowds were about 20 to 50 people. It just was a train wreck. And but everything we learned and all of the takeaways from Greg, some of them wouldn't work here in this small town, but some of them did. And we use those to build that crowd, to build that fan loyalty, to build that base. And now if we travel down to the Super 16 in Vegas, or if we go to the Best of Utah, we'll bring as many fans as just about any team up there. So it's pretty nice.
I love it. I love that. I want to transition a little bit into you, okay? And because you talked about with your when we were talking about the food and your mom, and you're talking about the area that you grew up in. Let's talk about where you grew up in and how that developed to how that cultivated you to become who you are today. Because you mentioned one thing, like you could have been in prison, but because your mom and and I know as a kid, sometimes we get involved in stuff that we don't need to get involved in, and you don't have to go into too much detail, but I want the viewers and listeners to kind of understand, where did you come from and what made Scotty become Scotty?
Oh, man, it's always, but I grew up in a trailer in a small town in eastern Utah. It's a coal mining town, Price, Utah. And I loved it there. But we were really poor. And my mom and this trailer it's crazy because it didn't have hot water or heat, our last 5 or 6 years there. And so you could wake up and you could see your breath, and it was just really weird. And the only thing that kept you from freezing to death was your dog and a sleeping blanket. And but we grew up in that environment. I grew up in that environment, and my mom made it feel like we never were without. And she was a checker at a Skaggs Alpha Beta in Price. So, but then a couple of friends of mine, they had some property out on the west of Price and down and up the canyon a little bit by Soldier Summit, and we would go do aerial ski jumping, and some of these guys were good, and I got into aerial ski jumping that way. You could just go down these ramps and snowmobile back up, and you could do it all day, and it was fun. And I wanted to learn how to twist, so I took some gymnastics lessons from two brilliant women in Price, Utah. And these guys produced kids like Callie Caller, Heather Maurer, Micah Brockbank, Mindy Johnson, Kim Johnson, all of these kids. And these guys all went to college and a lot of them went to college and did college gymnastics out of Price, Utah, this tiny little town. And but Barbara and Tira were very good technical coaches with basics and fundamentals and stuff like that. So they said that I could that they would teach me how to twist if I would spot and do all the spotting in there, because it was kind of, these kids were getting kind of beyond their capacity to spot these guys, and I'd never spotted anything. So I just started learning and figuring it out. And that's kind of how I got into gymnastics. It was never to be a gymnast. And trust me when I say this, everybody, I was never a gymnast or a very good one. And then but I learned from these kids, and then and I'm spotting these kids on double backs on floor, full ends on floor. And it was like a wrestling mat at the time. You got to remember, it's like 42 years ago. And Ray Korn came down and did a summer camp in Price. And I was a junior And my sister was going to Utah State, and I was going to go there anyway. And he's like, "Hey, where did you learn how to spot like that?" And I said, "Just here with these kids and stuff." So he's like, "Well, when you go to Utah State, give me a call." And I did. And that was 40 years ago. And I've been coaching collegiately ever since. So that's
Yeah.
kind of how I got into it. But yeah. And the area of Price I grew up in, if you saw it, you would kind of laugh. It wasn't the pretty side of town. So, but it was great. I loved it. I wouldn't trade growing up there for anything.
Yeah. Now, rest in peace, Ray Korn. I know
Love him. Love Ray Corn.
yes,
Yes.
he's been um, a staple for so many, especially in Utah. But there's so many coaches who've been under his mentorship or leadership, similar to Greg Martin. And, it seems like Utah happens to produce a lot of, very good coaches and people, and a lot of people have connections to those two universities across the country. Um, and can you kind of dive in a little bit about how Ray Korn was a mentor to you and what things that you kind of got from him to develop some parts of your coaching that you do right now?
So many parts of my coaching I got from Ray. He was just an amazing mentor. And I coached with Ray for 7 years. And I loved every second of it. And he and I would disagree, and he would be good about listening to my concerns over some of the things. And if he took those concerns, he would run with it. And if he didn't, he would be cool about how he didn't, listen to those. And he was just a good man. The way he treated his athletes, he cared about them deeply, not just as gymnasts. And this is one of the biggest things I picked up from him, was to care for them as people too. Just to Gymnasts is like very far behind where you care for them as an actual person. And Ray was really good at that aspect of coaching. He loved his job because he loved who he was coaching with. He loved helping to form young people and make them stronger and more prepared for what comes next in their life. And so many of those things I took from Ray. And and he actually was a good technician. He came from the Jerry George school. The first thing he did when I went to Utah State was he had me read Jerry George's Biomechanics of Gymnastics. And I read that book like 5 times, and it really helped me with the just fundamentals and a little bit of the physics of gymnastics. And I loved it. So it made me a lifelong fan.
I think, talking about books, I think you're referencing this book, yes?
I am, but it's the older. I have the older, smaller version. I have that one too, but where is it? I have the older, smaller version of that.
Yeah.
And before, because that one was redone, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years ago. But yeah,
I think I
I
got
have them
that
both.
book. I got
Pardon
that
me?
book because you recommended that book to me. That's
Did
what,
you read it? It's so good.
yeah. I haven't read it in a while, but I remember you saying, "Hey, get this book and learn what's in this book and use that in part of your coaching." And so that's why I have it. And a little plug for any other coaches, if you guys kind of want to understand the um biomechanics and physics a little bit more of gymnastics, get this book, check it out, and hopefully it helps you and your athletes. um Kind of going back into your coaching development. Now, did you ever leave Utah at any point to coach anywhere else, or was Utah the only place that you coached at Utah State and then Southern Utah, or did you have any other stints in between?
No, those have been, it's weird to say this, but those have been the two jobs I've had. And I mean, I've owned my own club for 32 years. I I coached at, I've always coached in the time that I coached college up until 2 years ago after COVID. Up until then, I always coached club gymnastics too, because I loved working with little kids and teaching them and watching a kid get that first kip. And, just those are the things that brought me a lot of satisfaction in the sport of gymnastics. And I've always appreciated the process of teaching and learning a skill from the very beginning to the very end. And that's a process that I've always, really appreciated, and just how every kid is different. And when you're coaching little kids and trying to figure out the nuances of how to teach them, and then you're coaching college athletes who know a lot more and are very, very savvy to a lot of things, and trying to produce and develop them and teach them new gymnastics, it's a little bit different. But the difference is really good. You just have to figure it out. And I love being challenged that way. It's one of my favorite things.
Yeah, no, I love it. Now, what was the thing that really drew you to the sport of gymnastics, and kind of really, was it Ray Korn coming to where you were, doing the spotting that kind of recruited you in, or was it something that you knew before that you wanted to do it, and was even college gymnastics on your radar to coach?
No, oh my gosh, no. I'm a science guy, so I majored in, biology and stuff like that. And I got into it in Price to learn how to twist and do things better. But when you started to work with people like Barbara and Tira Jackson, who are amazing, and the love that they had for it, and then you work with guys like Ray Korn and the love they had for it, and the passion that these people had for the sport, you started to see, and then you start to really understand and acknowledge the type of people that you're working with within the sport, and the completely driven nature of the people that do it. I mean, you have to be driven, hardworking, and just kind of an animal just to kind of be bad at this sport. And to see the kids who can break through barriers and stuff like that, those were the things that started to really draw me to the sport, and the just sheer beauty of the sport. This is really about the only sport where what you do on your hands is one of the major components of the sport. Because basketball, any game you play, you're not doing a lot of stuff on your hands, but in gymnastics, you are doing a lot. Track, you're not doing anything with your hands unless you're the throwing events, but you're never inverted, you're never getting upside down. And this sport is the one that does that. And you pair that crazy athleticism with the beauty and the flexibility and just the strength and power of these athletes. It's a sport that brings out something special in people, I believe. And it develops a kind of human being that is absolutely second to none. I think gymnasts are just absolute they have superpowers, they're just incredible.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more, because I'm similar to you in regards to not having a gymnastics background. I did flipping and stuff as a kid, but I wasn't a gymnast myself. We have a visitor.
Speaker? How do I get rid of that? Sorry, Petey. Jeff just walked in the room. Hey, everybody.
Hello, Jeff. How are you?
Hey,
how's it going?
It is going amazing.
Good. Everyone, this is Jeff, assistant coach at Southern Utah University.
Oh my
He's
God.
helping him with some technical stuff.
Scotty struggles a little bit with the technology, but
I could see I couldn't see you at all. I had that gray bar in the middle of my phone. It's driving me nuts. I feel so much more liberated now. Thanks, Jeffrey.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you, man. Hey, Jeff, I think they're doing a leadership meeting in there, and I forgot I had Petey's call. So
Sounds good. We could leave that in, or we could edit it out, whatever you would like.
You can do whatever you want, Petey. I figured we're going live this whole thing.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times I only edit, to be honest, the little ums and stuff like that, but I want to give it as raw as possible so people really feel the authentic, and maybe one day when and this is one of my hopes and dreams that, I'm doing these literally live in person, and
Yeah,
whenever we
that'd
do
be
that
great.
and a production team and stuff, they take care of that. They understand how people view things way better than I will. And so they'll edit it. But for the most part, I want to give it raw, as much as possible so people know how authentic, these conversations are.
Yeah, I'm okay with you leaving all that stuff in. It's no secret that I am not the most tech savvy guy out there. It's okay.
I love it.
I'm way good at other things.
Yeah, no, I love that. Let's kind of transition into talking about the university, and
Okay.
then we'll talk about other stuff like that. So first, where are you guys located? So Southern Utah, geographically located in Utah. Where are you, and what are you guys close to? What other major, cities or anything else that can kind of give people a reference of where you guys are?
Oh yeah, let's do this. Southern Utah University is in the southwestern corner of the state of Utah in a town named Cedar City. And it's this beautiful Hallmark town. Like if you ever watch Hallmark movies, Cedar City is like a Hallmark movie town. And we're right at the base of the Rocky Mountains. We sit at 6,000 feet of elevation. So we train at elevation every day. I'm looking out my office windows right at the western ridge of the Rocky Mountains, and they're beautiful. And Salt Lake is about 3 hours that way north, and Las Vegas is about 2 hours that way south. And so we sit kind of right in between those two metropolitan areas. And then just south of us is a town named St. George, Utah. Now, Cedar, we get snow and very mild winters and absolutely perfect summers and springs and stuff like that. But we'll get snow and then it'll be gone in 2 days or a day or whatever. It just doesn't last long. But St. George, where Jeff lives, they're palm trees and hot weather all year round. It's Las Vegas, Phoenix weather, and it's incredible. So during the winter, but during the summer, when you're sitting there at 115 degrees for 2 months straight, it's not that incredible. But it has its give and take, but it's absolutely beautiful. But when you drive from Cedar City to St. George, which is 30 minutes away, you're dropping down like a couple thousand, 2,000 or 3,000 feet. So you're also going into a much more milder climate. So it's nice. It's beautiful. And so you have this incredible topography all around Cedar City. And you have Bryce Canyon National Park right up that canyon. You have Zion National Park right down there. You have Canyonlands up there. You have Arches over there. Arches National Park. You have Lake Powell, the most incredible lake you're ever going to see in your life. Lake Powell is about an hour and a half that way. You have the north rim of the Grand Canyon and the K-Bib Plateau, about 2.5 hours south of here. It's an amazing place. And the university itself, it's about, when Jeff and I got here 33 years ago, it was about 3,000 students. So it was really small. And then up until about 8 years ago, when Scott Wyatt got here, it was about 5,000 students. It was this perfectly small, perfectly awesome university. And now it's about 14,000. We've had the most steady growth of any, and a lot of universities are seeing decreases and people walking away from that expense and all of the stuff of college education. But Southern Utah is crazy on the rise, and I don't know why, and I'm not sure if I love it or not. But a couple of years ago, we had to turn away 1,500 students because we literally didn't have the housing in Cedar City to house them, and that was a big blow. So they've been building up so much stuff around here all over the place. It's crazy. And and I've always loved this place because it's small and it's just got so much character that way. So it's not so big you get lost in the shuffle, and it's a wonderfully safe town, and it's just heaven to me. It really is.
Now, is the town pretty involved with the university? Like, do they support each other? If one didn't have the other, it would not be the same.
Oh my God, Petey. If Cedar City didn't have Southern Utah, this town would be interesting to see that scenario. And if Southern Utah didn't have the incredible people of Cedar City, it would be, it would just, the dynamic of it is just crazy, because the people of Cedar City make Southern Utah University. They really do. And the students make Southern Utah University, because you're not coming to this school to party and to do all of that stuff. It's just, I mean, you can do all that stuff here, but it's just not that kind of place. And so you're coming here to really get a top-notch education. And it's even though it's a smaller school, and I tell my recruits this too, even though it's a smaller school, don't let that fool you into thinking it's easier. It's not. It's actually probably in many ways a much more difficult university to go to and graduate from than most, because our professors here, they know you, they take a really good interest in you. And it's not easy. If you're in a class of 20 people, your teaching has a much higher efficacy than if you're in a class of 500, 600 or a couple of thousand people. And so they can hit the material deeper, they can get into it better, they can do all of that stuff. So I remember I loved organic chemistry in college. I loved it. I loved taking organic chemistry. I loved the concepts of it. It wasn't a very difficult series for me. And when I came here, I was trying to help a couple of my athletes in Ty Red's organic chemistry class, and he still teaches here and he's still incredible. I didn't even know what the heck I was looking at. He just gets into it way deeper. I'm like, what is this? So yeah, it was very different. So, and we just have absolutely amazing professors. The people of this university in this town are phenomenal. I've been offered jobs to go to other places. And you know what keeps me here every single time? It's the people. It's the people of Cedar City. So,
yeah. And can you also talk about the academic degrees that are popular at Southern Utah, as well as the tuition? What does the tuition look like? Is it a public school? Is it private school? And then also, is it Division I, Division II, Division III? You kind of mentioned it's a smaller university.
Yeah, we are definitely a Division I university. Our football team plays at what's called the FCS level. And that's still a great level, but it's not the bowl one. We're definitely not a Power 5, school in those areas. But our men's basketball team has made it to the tournament before. Our women's basketball team made it to the tournament last year. Our men's basketball team has had, 5 20-win seasons in a row. They're always pretty good. And we can still outdraw men's and women's. I mean, it's just basketball. It's just the nature of gymnastics in Cedar City.
Yeah.
But it's a D1 university, and we have all the perks that you get at a really big school. We have great trainers, we have a great medical staff, we have great resources when it comes to your mental health and stuff like that. We have absolutely one of the most beautiful and up-to-date, top-notch facilities in the entire country. It's gorgeous. Our competition facility is beautiful. It's not like bleachers or anything. It's like a real arena, and we have separate equipment for everything. And we don't have to set or take down anything. Our physical plant guys are absolutely extraordinary. We're just very lucky here, to be quite honest. So we're very, very lucky.
And academically, what are some of the top majors that people tend to come to Utah to pursue?
Yeah.
And
that was
what are
actually
some of the
original question.
No, it's all good. If I'm gonna be quite honest, I have an issue of stacking questions that are related, which I probably need to separate so the people
No,
can
that's
just answer
good.
them.
Because if I start going off on a tangent, I might answer a question you maybe asked earlier. So some of the best majors at Southern Utah University are anything in the sciences. Our science people are amazing. And if you want to go to medical school, this school is the way to go. We have this program called the Rural Health Scholars, and we can take our undergraduate people, and this is something that you can do at a small school that you can't do at a big school. We can take our undergraduate kids that want to go into medicine, and we can take them all around all these rural hospitals and stuff around Cedar City, and they get to work directly with doctors, and they get to do all kinds of things. So you get all this undergraduate exposure to all of this stuff. And the kids that come out of the Rural Health Scholars, they go into medical school. It's over 90% of the ones that get in. And, you know, anything in the sciences, that kind of stuff, teaching, education. We have a pretty decent little engineering department here. Our business is absolutely incredible. Both of my daughters graduated in business from Southern Utah University, and one of them works for the Attorney General in Seattle, for the Attorney General up there. And my youngest one is a senior markets analyst for Goldman Sachs. And yeah, so, and that's just, and I could go on about the doctors and the lawyers and the dentists and the occupational therapists and the physical therapists and the incredible mothers and the business owners and the CEOs that have come out of our little gymnastics program. I could go on and on all day long about those guys. But you come to this school because you have a vision for yourself, you know, and it's not about just, I'm going to go to college and party and do all this stuff. And, you know, there's some of that. You have to have a social life and all this stuff, but they're here to get an education. And that's what these kids usually are very serious about. And I love that about the kids that I get to work with every single day. They're smart. They're really smart, and they can test you sometimes that way. And I love that. So.
Yeah. And now, you know, for your gymnastics team, do you have a high academic standard for them in regards to what you require as a gymnastics program for their GPA to be not necessarily part of the program, but just like what you require, you know, because from you loving education and the sciences and stuff like that, and kind of talking highly about the education program at Southern Utah, is that one of the standards that you bestow upon your athletes?
Absolutely. I listen to coaches and, you know, C's or degrees and all of that stuff. And I get that and I understand. But it's hasn't been that way here, and it never has been. We've been in the top 2 or 3 academically as a program. That means your GPA. As a program, probably 25 times of the 32, you know, years we've been here. And we've always had a very strict standard, because I truly believe that excellence is something you just don't do in part of your life. If you want to be really good and you want to be a great leader, you want to become really good at whatever you do, push yourself in everything you do. You know, just have a standard and have a, you know, it's okay to set standards and have, you know, expectations, and if they reach them, great. If they don't, you don't crucify them or anything like that. You're just like, hey, what can we do better to get you through this? Because if a kid is working hard and they're doing a great job and they're just getting a C, I can live with that. Yeah. You know, as long as they're putting in the effort and they just maybe don't quite comprehend the material, I'm cool with that. You know, it's better than a kid just being so anxious and driving themselves nuts to get straight A's. That's, you know, that kid can drive you crazy, just as crazy too, because that perfectionism is something that it's a double-edged sword for sure, and every coach knows that. So
yeah. And what is the tuition typically for?
Tuition at Southern Utah, and there are lots of ways to get a lot of help with tuition, and that's one of the great things about it. Again, because it's a smaller school, you have really good academic support people. And, you know, but I think tuition for out of state for Southern Utah is about $19,000. But there's all kinds of scholarships that you can get to make it to where it's an in-state tuition thing. And then if you're a good student, they can take that and make it so it's a lot less. And they're really good at that here. So they work around to figure out how to get you here. And it's funny because, you know, 7-8 years ago, the acceptance rate into Southern Utah University was right around 47 to 50%. And they've upped that a little bit. And I think that's why we've been able to grow so much more in the last few years. Now they accept like 74 to 80% of the people that apply. But it's good because you get a much broader range of people. And I love it.
Yeah. No, I think that's good. I think diversity in regards to, you know, demographics, social, economic, you know, standards and stuff
Absolutely.
like that. And you know,
and just foreign students. We have when you walk down this hall in our student center, and you can see the flags of all of the countries that are represented at this university, and it's absolutely amazing. I love it.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. Now kind of talking about the gymnastics program in itself. We met Jeff a little bit ago just because he came in and introduced himself and helped you with your technical aspect of the bar being in the way, right? So
Absolutely.
who's the rest of your staff, and what is everybody's role on your staff?
Great question, PD. We have, I would say, hands down, the best staff in the country. And I don't care what anybody says. I've been with these guys forever, and I know them. And I haven't had a lot of turnover in my staff. I worked with Jeff Hunt for 10 years. He was with me. Kara Loudon was for 11. Jamie's been with me for 12. Jeff's been with me on and off for 35. But I know these people very deeply. We all hang out together all the time. But Jamie's role is we have very defined roles. Jamie is the only one on our staff between me and Jeff and Jamie on the upper end of the staff that has any kind of creativity whatsoever. So, she does all the apparel, the leotards, and the choreography and all of that stuff. Jeff and I don't touch any of that stuff, thank goodness. And then Jeff does all that. He's the recruiting coordinator. So he's constantly, in communication with recruits and doing all of that, the bulk of all of that. I'm making sure those guys are doing what they're doing, and I'm dealing with the administration. I am the buffer between them and the administration. And then, and being at this university for so long, I'm entwined with the administration really well, and not just the athletic administration, our administration. I'm the president is a good friend of mine. She was a student here when I was still a coach here. We knew each other then. She's just a local kid, and she's absolutely amazing. And we're so lucky to have her as a president. I couldn't believe it when they hired her. They did the right thing. It was the best thing this university could have ever done. And I'm so glad that they did it. But, we have Jeff and Jamie. And then we have Kylie, who's been with us for, I think this is Kylie's 7th year. And she's our volunteer assistant. And then our manager is this amazing young lady, Alex LaCroix, who had come to our camps when she was young and just fell in love with Cedar City. So did Kylie. And these two do a lot of the work in the gym. And then we have 2 former athletes who are now like managers in there. And they're Megan Locke and Brie Alcantar. And these people bring the energy and the excitement. And Jeff and Jamie are really good at that. I'm good at that. But Jeff and Jamie, we all coach in a very positive approach to coaching. We're never demeaning. I almost never yell. And if I've ever yelled at the team, it might be like once a year, and it's at the entire team. And it's because things were looking maybe dangerous, and it's never mean or anything. It's like, you guys, come on. And I can say it just like that, and they'll feel like I just yelled at them. But it's a fun environment to be in every day. And one of the most beautiful things about it all is that our gym, if you've ever been in there, it's 23 feet high on all 4 sides of windows. So you have all this natural light coming in. It's not dark and dreary. It's always kind of a pleasant, upbeat, kind of fun place to be. We love walking into the gym. But again, my immediate step, Jeff and Jamie and Kylie and Alex and Megan and Bree, they're all absolutely amazing. And one of the things we've done so well here, I think in the past too, we always used to develop really good guy spotting coaches like Jeff Hunt, Jeff Richards, Caleb Phillips, Justin and Brian Bauman, and they're I could just keep naming them off, but we really don't encourage guys to go into coaching anymore. It's just, you just don't want to do that. And so now we're teaching these amazing young coaches like Alex LaCroix. She's incredible. And Kylie Ott, she's incredible. And all you coaches out there, if you hear this, you should hire these people if they want to continue to coach college, because they're incredible. And Bree and Megan Locke, if those guys are just absolutely phenomenal. So we're really lucky to have this staff, and I adore all of them. So
yeah, I want to pick your brain about a couple of things. So you had mentioned you had developed a lot of guys, you said, into coaches and stuff like that, and you're saying you're trying to help develop more women into those roles. Why do you think that way? And what's your thought process?
Well, I think it's just a more logical pathway now. It's being a guy and coaching women is a little bit different than it was 40 years ago when I started coaching. And you have to kind of be careful. You have to be careful of everything that comes out of your mouth. You have to be very careful of, you know, how you spot, when you spot. I mean, you just, it's kind of a scary thing anymore. And you just got to watch your step. And I don't know if you can be the most effective coach when you're just trying to tiptoe around everything all the time and you're walking on eggshells in there. So I think it's a better place to teach young women how to coach and how to spot and how to develop, you know, and I think it's probably a better place. That's all.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to sound sexist or anything here at all. It's just, I wouldn't recommend that for guys anymore. I'd say, yeah, man, go into engineering or something.
Yeah. No, I think it's good. I think it's insight, you know, because I think one of two things. One, you know, if there's guys who are wanting to get into it, what type of things that they would need to make sure that they're really aware of and really understand the sport, right? And to how to navigate it, right? And then if you're a female, you know, how to even navigate it in that way too, right? Because if it becomes where, you know, because I've heard people say, and especially on comments and stuff, why is there males, you know, working with females in a female sport, right? And sometimes a lot of the reasons why is because of spotting aspects, you know. And
Absolutely.
but also a lot of phenomenal coaches have come from backgrounds that aren't related to the sport at all, right? There's been a, you know, a plethora of coaches, male and female, who have zero outside. You know, we can even talk about Miss Val, for example.
Or
Like, she
Greg
didn't,
Marsden.
right.
Yeah.
So they didn't have their own gymnastics journey, and they weren't, you know, at the pinnacle of the sport. And yet, if you bring up those two names, um, Utah, the University of Utah, they've never missed a national championship, right? UCLA, with Ms. Val winning the, you know, 7 national championships in her tenure there, right? And having zero experience and bringing the art of dance and performance to literally change the landscape of gymnastics. And we mentioned this earlier, viral video after viral video, you know, have come out of there, you know, in regards to their dance routine, their floor routines, and, you know, beam and stuff like that. But just the overall performance. And you had mentioned with Greg the marketing and how to really create a show, right? When people come to watch a gymnastics meet, they're coming to watch a show, a performance, and these
Yep.
athletes are putting forth their best for performances, you know. And then it's the other stuff, right? Just like any other sport, the in between stuff, you know, the games that you do, the, you know, the giveaways and all that stuff, the music, you know. um
Yeah.
and, you know, kind of segueing it back, you know, being able to have people still want to get into the sport, you know, but also understanding where the sport is. And
Yeah.
maybe, you know, it could be where they're, because you saying that could discourage some other males who'd be like, man, I really want to keep going in the sport. Or it could just be like, all right, if I'm going to get into it, I have to really understand
Know what
where
you're getting into and make sure you're respecting the people that you work with in the highest way that you can. And I, it's hard because the only thing I've ever tried, I think I'm like the 4th, maybe the 5th best coach on my staff, honestly. But the biggest thing I've always tried to do with our athletes is just try to be a good guy, you know, try to be a good man. And the way I speak about my wife, the way I speak about people in general, you'll never hear me say anything bad about another person unless that person's sitting right there. I can't do it. I won't do it, you know. And it's, you try to be as respectful as you can. And I think if you live in that world as a coach, then you'll be okay. And they'll understand that, and they will respect that, and they will take that and run with it. So,
yeah. And the other thing too is you had talked about is, kind of, developing, these females to be able to learn how to spot and stuff like that. But one of the, I guess, myths you could say is that if you go to a Division I school, you better have the skills, or else, one, you won't be able to make the team. Two, you won't get any more skills. So whatever you come in with is what you're going to leave with. Now, if you're spotting and doing all that stuff at Southern Utah, can an athlete gain more skills in their time there?
Oh God, yeah. Yes. For sure. We actually demand that out of them. We don't want what they're doing when they come here as a freshman to be what they're doing when they're junior. And we've taught so many new dismounts, double layouts, full twisting, double layouts, full twisting, double tucks off of bars that, I mean, if you're doing a giant full double when you get here, you're probably not doing that when you're a junior. You're almost certainly not doing that when you're a junior. And then, yeah, there was a time when, not that long ago, where we had 7 people competing a hop full on our team. And we just have this system of drills and steps that we take to teach, a hop full or a double layout or a takachev or any of that stuff. So if your bars aren't quite to the level when you get here, and we'll understand that, we're cool with that. Say you're a great beam worker and a great vaulter. Sometimes the best vaulters aren't the best bar workers, for sure. And, but we'll teach that kid how to do bars, and bars at a really solid 985, 99 level, Division I level, if they want to continue to learn it. I'll give you a story. Jessie Ann Andrus. She came out of Nebo Gymnastics here in Cedar City. This is a little club in central Utah. And the coach there is absolutely amazing, Rich Trimble. But he develops a love for the sport and a yearning for knowledge of the sport in his kids, because it stepped her vor out of that club, But this kid, Jessie Ann Andrews, she came here and she was, for lack of a better way, and Jessie, I love you, I do. She was terrible on bars. She was the worst bar worker you'd ever seen, just terrible. And when she came here, she's like, hey, you told me you'd teach me bars. Are you still okay with that? And I go, yeah. So her whole freshman year, honest truth, all she did was casts and tap swings. I wouldn't let her swing a giant because it was not a great giant. And just the mechanics of a tap and a good cast. And so her whole freshman year, that's all she did. But then, and this is a long time ago, so kids would go home for the summer, but Jessie Ann stayed and she wanted to learn gymnastics. So that summer, in between her freshman and her sophomore year, she had developed this beautiful cast, and she developed this perfect tap for anything. And we had developed it to where she could tap early, she could tap medium, she could tap late if she wanted to. And we just taught her how to use that and differentiate what tap to use for what skills. And so then her going into summer, she wanted to stay and learn bars because she always wanted to do bars. And that summer, she learned a hop full into a ginger, a really pretty bail to handstand, and a double layout. All of those skills, those 4 skills. And by the time everybody got back by the end of the summer, because we had just drilled the mechanics of good shaping through her swing, her tap swing, and her casting, it was easy to teach her this stuff. So when everybody got back, Jessie Ann had a hop full, ginger, kip cast with her legs together, kip cast handstand, bail handstand, up to a double layout dismount. And up to the double layout, and then the double layout separate. And nobody could believe it. And the next 3 years, Jessie Ann Andrus was one of our top bar workers on the team. And Carrie Loudon, who was a gymnast up at BYU, who knew Jessie Ann before, she knew she wasn't a good bar worker. And then she saw her come down here and what she developed into. And Carrie's like, I want to work with you when I'm done with college gymnastics. And so I hired her. And she worked with me for 10 years. And now she owns this big, huge, beautiful gym just like 2 blocks from here. but yeah, but we go through the process, and we want them to continue to learn and grow. And if you're willing to, we will teach you whatever you want. And if you feel like you can manage what you can do and compete at this level, which for oftentimes is not the case for our incoming freshmen. We don't get those freshmen that can do everything just right through the gate.
Yeah.
We have to still teach these guys. And that's what Jeff and Jamie and I are really built for. We love teaching gymnastics. We don't want to just kind of maintain gymnastics. For us, that's really super boring.
Yeah. So then that makes me question or ask, how do you recruit? So what kind of athletes are you looking for? Or what are you looking for in your recruits when you're recruiting? Are you looking for great people, how you mentioned before, or are you looking for specific things, how this same athlete you just talked about who ended up learning how to go from just a cast handstand to tap swings to having a whole bar routine, where they have two solid events? What are you guys really looking for when you guys are recruiting a prospect athlete and now of age? Have to throw that in to make sure that for compliance reasons. But what are you looking for in your recruits?
Ooh, people. We're just looking for the person. I mean, we've turned away just stellar athletes that we knew 100% that wanted to come here too, but we knew 100% they would not fit into the system that we have here. And but we look for the person, Petey. It's hard to describe because it's not just gymnastics. Gymnastics is the biggest component, obviously, that we look for, but it's their grades. It's how they talk to you on the phone, how they look and talk to their coaches. It's how the little other kids in their club come up to them and talk to them, or when you're at a regional, how you seem to get along with other people in that group and nationals. And for me, a lot of it is body language. That's a big component in what we look for with people. And I'll give you an example. Haley Voltaggio, this amazing little gymnast. She's 4'10", just nothing but Italian attitude and power and brilliant human being. But I loved everything about this kid. And she went to the national championships, and she went to ball first, and it was a great ball, and she did great. And then she went to bars, and I'm not kidding you. And I think you can even look at the scores, but she fell 5 times and scored like a 5. And I'm like, okay, this is my chance to really see Haley Voltaggio and what she's like. And she just kind of gets off bars and she's shaking her head like, whoa. And then she looks over at me because she's already committed to Southern Utah, and she's coming to Southern Utah. And she looks over at me and she's just like, I don't even know. And then, Petey, I tell you, she went over to balance beam and she did a flick lay lay, and her flick lay 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 was like that. And I don't know how she made it, but she didn't even wobble on it, and then continued. And then she had a great floor routine. She was absolutely amazing. And it was more those attributes of Haley that we recruited than just the gymnastics, because the gymnastics was great. But then her last year, she had fallen in her first 3 meets of the year on beam. She's a great beam worker. And after the third one, it was a home meet. There were thousands of people there. She was just kind of sitting over there and she had her head down. You could tell she was kind of beat down on it. So I walked up to her and I just looked her right in the eye, and I picked her chin up and I made her look me in the eye. And I'm like, you're fine. Let's go to floor and kill floor. Worrying about that is not going to help you. It's not going to do anything for you. Just let's move on to what's next. Let's be here, be right now, and get over the floor and do Haley Voltaggio. And she did, and she nailed it. And do you know what her next 4 scores on beam were? Like 9925, 99, 9925, 9875. That's just, you can see when that body language has shifted, but then you can also help shift it back to where it needs to be. And in that moment, Haley was strong enough to just let it go. Yeah. And to move on. And she became what her team needed her to be.
Yeah. And how many athletes you typically carry on your team? And what is the culture that you're looking for in your program?
Oh, culture is such a buzzword, isn't it? Culture is something that it's a pretty organic process. It's something that it takes time. You can't just say, well, we're going to switch the culture here. We're going to do all this stuff and all this stuff. It's something that comes from the top down. And what I want in our culture is respect for each other on that team. I mean, that's the biggest thing. You're going to have, these are type A, hard charging, competitive young ladies. There's going to be some issues every now and again. But if you stay in the realm of respect for each other, if you respect each other and you can disagree, you are really helping these young ladies out. And when we talk to each other in the gym, it's, hey, thank you, please, hey, can you help me with this, please? It's always a respectful approach to everything. It's and it doesn't matter who it is. And I think this is we've always done this from the top down. I think we're kind of a little bit backwards and how we do things, and that's okay. Because when we travel, the seniors and the captains and the leaders on the team are the ones who carry the boards and have all of the responsibilities and all of that stuff. We don't say, hey, freshman, go get this crap. That's just so stupid. And then, and then the juniors also help with that. And also how we do everything within our gym. So freshmen come in, they have this one responsibility within the gym and everything, and it's the cabinet. It's our stereo cabinet. Every day that thing gets wiped down, the benches right next to the cabinet get wiped down, and it's looks spotless every day. The sophomores have the locker room. So that's a little bit bigger project. They wipe it down, they clean it up, they make it look good. Our cleaning staff does a brilliant job of this too. It's just part of the responsibilities you have, just to make it look like it's a really beautiful Division I thing. And the juniors and seniors have the gym. So all the mats have to be stacked a certain way, lined up perfectly, everything has its place. They all know what it is. And so they have the biggest responsibility. And that's how it is with everything on our team, So, and the leaders are, our culture is simple. We really only have 3 things that we run this program by. 1, we don't whine. We don't whine about anything. Whining doesn't do anything but drive everybody nuts. 2, we are well led. We develop and foster an environment of leadership. We teach these guys how to, situational awareness in leading, and we do this almost every Saturday. We go through leadership things, and we do it with the whole team. And then we sit down with our leadership council on the team once a week to go over the plan, what we're doing, what we need to see more out of them, what we need to see more out of the team. And they can bring back to us, ideas from the team and what people are thinking, so we keep in real good communication with our team and our team leaders. We sit down with all of the individuals all the time when they're coming in, and we have a good line of communication here, but we're well led, and then we compete for each other. We work for and we compete for each other. And if you're doing those things, the third one, encompasses the respect aspect. So does the second one, and so does the first one. Whining about stuff drives everybody nuts, so those are the 3 things we really within our culture focus on. But being good to each other. If you look, I mean, my computer has it on it too. It's just simple, easy, dumb things, and that's been on there for 20 years. It's just be kind to each other. You don't need to be a jerk, but if you have a disagreement, talk it out, figure it out, move on, and our team has been really, really good at doing that. People aren't easily offended in there. They're very tough skinned, they're very hardworking, blue collar type kids. And I absolutely love that.
Yeah. The other aspect I kind of want to dive into is one of 2 things. The transfer portal kind of being a big thing. How does Southern Utah kind of navigate through that? And then secondly is with name, image, likeness being now a little bit more popular. Is that something that is part of the process of, you know, with Southern Utah, or is that something that is involved with the gymnastics and stuff like that? Just kind of talk about, bring some awareness. And you're the first one I'm really talking about these things with, you know, and I want to start to at least bring some more information and light to that specific topics.
Okay, so the first one, name, image, likeness was the second one. What was the first one?
The first one was transfer portal. Sorry.
Transfer portal. Okay, okay, these are trends that if you're a coach and you're not at one of the Floridas or the UCLAs or stuff like that, then it's not really the greatest thing in the world. We have been very blessed. We haven't had like really anybody. We've had a couple over 33 years, but you know, we haven't really had a lot of people transfer out. And in the same measure, we don't really let a lot of people transfer in either. My philosophy has always been, I want to build my own athletes. You know, I want to build kids who start in this system, finish in this system. They adore, they love, and they appreciate this system. And they're very grateful for it. And, you know, and it's hard if a kid goes to another school and has a very bad experience. You never know what you're going to get with that. And maybe transferring for them would be the best thing in the world. And we have allowed that a couple of times, and it's been the best thing in the world for those kids. But we knew those kids really well in the recruiting process too. You know, I'd have to know them,
yeah,
to allow them onto my team. That's just all there is to it. So if I didn't know Bailey Penley or Madison Loomis in the recruiting process, I wouldn't have allowed them into our program. So, you know, if it's somebody I know nothing about and they want to transfer here, we're kind of funny about that. But at the same time, I'll call the coaches and talk to them. I've always called the coaches and talked to them and ask them, hey, what's this kid like? What's this kid like outside of the gym? How's she to coach? You know, and then we'll try to get them every now and again. So the transfer portal to us has been really a big non-factor, but it's something that can start affecting programs, because all of a sudden, say Carly McLean comes here and she was who she was, or Elise Wheeler, and they're 39.5, 39.6 all-arounders, and all of a sudden maybe this school wants them and they start actively recruiting them. To me, that is not, I'm never going to be okay with that. You know, it's just do your work, do your job, you know, and I have a hard time with that. But at the same time, I understand everything is evolving, and with NIL, it's going to evolve even more. And you're going to see some teams that can really do the NIL game really, really good. And it's going to be the same teams that pretty much already have everything. And you're going to see some teams that won't be able to do it. And, you know, and it's funny because these top teams want to just keep making it easier for them. And I get that, you know, they're under stress to keep their jobs and stuff too. So they want to be able to easily separate themselves from everybody else. And this is just one of the ways that they will be able to do that. And they're talking about other ways to be able to do that. And if we go down this path deeply, you're going to, and I'm not trying to put up alarms or anything, but I'm just telling you the truth and how it is. And I guarantee every other freak coach out there is thinking this, except maybe 4 or 5 that are oblivious and think they know everything, but they just kind of don't know anything about schools that aren't that in that same realm. And it's just going to be a very difficult situation for us to continue to be competitive. And you want parity. You want there to be parity. You want on any given day for a Southern Utah to be able to beat a UCLA or a Michigan or something like that. That is a good thing for this sport. It's not a bad thing, but people fear it and people are nervous about that. They think they'll get fired if they do that, you know, and it's not true. If you're doing a good job, you're doing a good job. It doesn't matter. But it's very important for there to be parity. And if there isn't parity, then things are going to go down a weird path, and you're going to be to where you are in men's gymnastics, kind of. And I know people don't want to hear that, but I just don't care what they want to hear. It's the truth. So,
yeah, no, I think it's good. I think, you know, and I appreciate you diving into it, because you know, I think it changes the game, in my opinion, you know, and with you guys doing the active recruiting, you would know a lot more than I would as college coaches, but it could change the game and even seeing the character of these athletes. Because you mentioned so much of the character aspects of the recruiting process, which most coaches, that is a big component. But if an athlete is looking for those things, and you know that's one of the amenities that they're looking for in their university, in their experience, you know, that's going to change if they come here or not. If Southern Utah, you know, is going to be able to give me this or have me connected to these people who will give me this, and then, you know, um, instead of, you know, say just Denver, just, you know, say Denver is only going to give me this. Now I'm doing this based off of money, right? Because again, for no matter what, some people's backgrounds, like you had mentioned, you grew up poor, that might be a big thing to you, being like, hey, you know
Mhm.
what, this could put me in a position I've never been in my life financially, and that's a big
Yeah,
deal to me. But also you can get caught up into the social media game of, hey, look at, you know, I'm getting all this, these sponsorships, this much money, this and that, and now I'm on social media, and it can or cannot become a distraction for teams and stuff like that.
absolutely.
Or it could bring a fan base because now this person is known, and, you know, which could help the sport, but again, it could be a distraction. It could,
Absolutely.
you know, it could play into egos and stuff like that. And, you know, having these conversations to know how are we navigating it and how to navigate it.
PD, I'll tell you this, and I know this for sure. Money changes everything, and it changes everyone. It changes people, you know. And when you start doing all of these decisions based on money rather than your overall happiness and well-being, um, you know, would I be happier going to a smaller school where I'm going to be competitive? I'm going to be in an environment that adores me. I'm going to be the tier one sport at that school. We're, or do I want to go here because they're going to give me, you know, $10,000 or just to be on the team or whatever. When money starts guiding every one of your decisions and not your well-being or your happiness or whatever, because we're very fortunate in Southern Utah. No, not every kid has had a, you know, kids come here and they think they get to should compete more than they're actually going to compete, and that maybe it leads to them not having the best experience. But it's, we treated them kindly and with respect and everything. It's just their perceptions of what their experience was. And you know, so I wish every kid could come here and have a great experience, because we have 22 to 23 kids on our team. I like having that big of a team because it doesn't force you to have all arounders, which for a school like ours is really hard to get. And you know, so you can have 13 or 14 kids on a team if every kid is a 3 or 4 event kid. You know, but if I have a kid that's just really good at ball but really nothing else, then I want that kid on my team. Now I want to give her a chance to be here and compete. You know, so we have a little bit bigger team, I think, than most, but we're trying to get down to 20 and keep it right at 20. 20 would be a great number. But again, if you have 20 people, you probably should, every one of those kids should be at least a really good, solid 2 event kid. That means 8 athletes on my team, 8 to 10 athletes on my team aren't going to be getting scholarships, you know, but hopefully they're still competing. And if they are competing and this kid that isn't getting a scholarship isn't competing or doing anything, you know, what is that, good or is that bad or what? You know, is it fair? Yeah, fair. But it's all what you make of it and
Right.
how you approach it. So
No, definitely. Do you have any final things that you want to tell the viewers, the listeners, about your program, about you guys, and what makes SUU so special?
SUU is special because of the people at Southern Utah University, the people of Cedar City, Utah. It's a beautiful school, just absolutely beautiful little campus. And, you know, and they take gymnastics very, very seriously here in Cedar City. They demand a lot out of the program. They really do. And I love that. It's good. I want that. I don't want to be somewhere that doesn't want that, you know? those are some of the biggest things about it. And if you've never been to a gymnastics meet at Southern Utah University, it is a crazy, fun, awesome experience. So I would encourage you, if you're on the recruiting trail or anything like that, and you're driving by Cedar City and it just happens to be during a meet, do it. You won't want to go anywhere else. It's an amazing place that way.
I love that. And can you plug your camp? Talk about your camp a little bit, and when is your camps typically, and kind of what are some fun things that people can look forward to doing? Because I know some things I can mention from past camps, but have you mentioned? And also for coaches who may be looking for somewhere to possibly learn or to be able to send their athletes and come along with, what are some things they can look forward to?
I feel like Jeff and Jamie do a great job with our camp. They bring in top level coaches. These guys know their stuff. They're very good coaches. We've had you out for them. We want to get you back. It's a fun camp. It's a very fun environment. We've had kids that have been coming back for 10 years. And once they come here and they work out in that facility, they love it. But the coaches that we bring in are absolutely fantastic. They know their stuff, and we haven't had a camp here in the last 10 years that I haven't learned something from some of these coaches. I was lucky. I went to Lake Owen camp for 25 years, and I learned so much stuff from coaches out there, great coaches, Neil Resnick and some of these guys that just are so good at what they do. But our camp is fantastic, and it's a teaching camp. We've had kids come in there, and I'm not kidding you. I can name probably 10 that have come in there and have the worst double tuck you've ever seen in your life, and leave that camp in 5 days, 4 or 5 days, and have a great double layout, straight up good double layout. And I mean, I do work with those kids, and I beat their hands to death for that week, but that's what they wanted to learn. So I'm like, yeah. Do you want to learn this or do you not want to learn this? And let's go. And so if they're here to learn a specific skill or something like that, we'll figure it out. So it's kind of a fun camp that way. We'll let kids throw things because we have a very safe, we have loose foam pits off into the vault, off of the bars, into the floor, whatever. And then we have resi pits on all of those as well. So it's a pretty safe camp. And yeah, we've been really lucky with our camps. They do a great job. And they're fun. We do. So what we've done for years is we do, thanks Owen Timothy Field, we do a punch front contest in our camp. And you won't believe how high some of these have done. And we've been doing it for 12, 13 years now. And you won't believe how high some of these kids get. And if they do that, we'll let them jump out of the rafters. We'll teach them how to jump out of the rafters, but we'll every now and again, we'll let them jump out of the rafters. We haven't done that in the last few years, but we used to do that, and it was fun. So,
yeah. No, I love it. Well, thank you so much, Scotty, for being on the podcast and talking about SUU and, giving the listeners and viewers some insights of your own personal life and how you got into gymnastics and the mentors and, what you expect from your team, but also some of your opinions on different topics within the sport of gymnastics. And I think it's going to be very insightful for the listeners and viewers. And I'm excited to one day do this in person.
Thank you, Petey. It's great talking to you as always, man. And you're always welcome here in Cedar City. So let me know when you're driving by.
I will. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in to another episode of Heated Conversations with Scotty Bauman of Southern Utah University. Remember to hit that subscribe button, like, comment, share, and so other people can kind of get this information so they understand kind of the nuances of gymnastics in college gymnastics and a little bit more about these universities, where they're located, kind of their program philosophies, and are able to make the best decisions for them. And super excited for the future of this podcast. And thank you for being a part of it and part of this journey. I'll see you guys on the next one.